Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second, but also kind of the first Joe Loves Movies podcast, which will be a little conversation at the beginning. It is, of course, I, Joe, a.k.a. Merlin, and I have Dan here with me.
Hello.
You've probably seen or heard Dan before, kicking it old school. You like the audio? Got to do the old school podcast.
I do, actually. This is how we used to do Film Fanatics.
Yeah, and I'm just like, we have this discussion about podcasts. When I think about it, it's primarily in audio format. So these, to give you guys a recap, my first one I did was actually Batman 89. And with the Joe Loves Movies videos, I've basically been doing these retrospectives of my favorite movies and just kind of trying to evaluate and say why they're my favorites. But I'm like, okay, maybe I can't get to all of them right away, so maybe I'll find some movies I know other people like that maybe I like as well, and that can be a more laid-back review.
Yeah.
And, the first one I ever recorded for a podcast for Joe Loves Movies was with you, which was the classic Coming to America. One of my favorite movies of all time. Great comedy.
One of mine as well.
I know.
Yeah.
And hence why...
Made my list.
Me too. Which is why I was like, okay, definitely want to have it on the list. And we talk about it all the time. We're always quoting it. We love it. I'm like, well, we should talk about it and make it sense. And we recorded it, and it just didn't record, or it got lost.
I don't know what happened. Your computer ended up crashing or something.
Oh, that's what it was.
It did record, but then, you lost it, basically.
That would have been I think over a year. Yeah, that would have been 2019 or something, because that's what happened. Yeah, I had done a couple other videos and some other things, and my hard drive crashed, and yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That was on there. So technically, I will consider it the second episode, but I'll also be a version a 0 take 2 or something.
Yeah.
So we had a good discussion about it, but it works out well because the sequel recently came out.
Yeah, good timing to do it now.
Which is what we said. We're just going to do it when the second one comes out. So we'll talk about that a little bit here too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Coming to America. All right, and I'll also give you another little bit of...
this is, I think, your first comedy on Joe Loves Movies as well.
That's why I actually wanted to bring that up, because I think when I'm doing the scripted, edited videos... they tend to be more serious and analytical, and also, from an emotional perspective. I'm trying to be honest about it. But I realized kind of a problem, and I think you being such a fan of comedies, you can maybe help me with this.
Okay.
I feel like doing a video about a comedy would be difficult, because, first of all, humor is kind of subjective. Trying to explain about how a joke works, maybe I could do that, but then I'd just be explaining the joke, which might take something away.
Yeah.
I think talking about... doing a retrospective on a comedy I really like would be harder than something more serious, which is why I think they might be better for podcasts.
That makes sense.
I don't know. What do you think about that? Is that because I was I really if I was going to do Twins, maybe I'll try to make Twins a video, but I think that might just be a podcast too, because I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny because I will you know my channel, Dan Reviews It. I do plug, but I do reviews every week of the Connors episodes, and sometimes I will retell one of the jokes or kind of say oh yeah, this person said this and it was really funny, but even as I'm saying it every time, in my mind I'm like, yeah, but I'm not that person, so it's not going to be as funny just a person repeating the joke.
But I guess it's an audience thing, so people watching will get it.
I guess so, because you would think people that watch my video watch the episode, and I would think for the most part, people that have seen Coming to America would be watching or listening to this.
That's true.
Right?
But I'm also trying to kind of get it out that if you haven't seen it, I'm recommending it.
Yeah, that's true.
With a comedy, it's more difficult.
But you're right, because it is almost like dissecting the joke.
Which takes away from the joke a little.
But, I don't think... when we recorded this the first time, a couple years ago, I think the bulk of it, and hopefully we can, talk about it.
Hopefully.
It was, why the movie is so beloved
by people,
why it was so successful, and that sort of thing, rather than
why it's enduring.
Giving the jokes.
Yeah, that's true. And I'll actually tell you something, and this might take away a bit more. I think it was actually thinking about the new movie that came out, and I think if I did make a video about it, I think for me, a great comedy definitely has to have, obviously, humor that I find funny, but the best comedies, I think, definitely have some heart and some dramatic components. And Coming to America, it's weird because there's a lot of buildup of, okay, joke, bit, funny comedy thing, which is so funny. But watching it again recently, I watched it with my family again, of course, because kind of grew up with it as a family staple with you too, right?
This is definitely common ground for us.
That's the thing, yeah.
I think, in fact, I made a special visit home to my brother this past weekend so we could watch the new one together.
Nice.
Because we had seen the original together so many times. And my nephew's now 15, and I introduced the original to him a couple years ago, so he watched it with us.
The tradition continues.
So the tradition continues through generations now. But yeah, I mean, this is something that both of our families grew up watching a lot of, quoting incessantly. This is, I would say, the most quoted movie within my family.
Probably up there for me too, for sure. We got other random ones as well, but
quotability. We do Back to the Future a lot. We do some Ferris Bueller, but like more than anything, I would say Coming to America.
We've talked about in another podcast somewhere. Quotability is kind of a great sign of an enduring movie.
Yeah,
some great
certainly
lines.
For a comedy, but even
in general
for an action movie, it could be
unintentional.
Great.
Comedy.
Well, but like Arnold giving his lines. Or, Yippee-ki-yay.
But, I agree. I grew up with this one, and I think that obviously is one reason why it has such a nostalgic attachment. But, like many things that I have talked about on my channel and otherwise, not everything I loved as a kid holds up for me.
That's very true.
And I find that
and another thing to point out to your listeners is we're also 10 years apart.
True.
When the movie came out, I was 11, so I watched it when it was first available for rental, so I was probably 12.
I wasn't born yet.
But you weren't even born. Or you were like 1.
No, it was a year before.
Is that right?
88, I think, right?
Okay. Yeah, it was 88.
I'm 89, so yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go. So,
I wasn't born yet.
So there in itself, and my nephew, who was born in 2004 or something, or 2005. Very young. Also appreciates it,
and it's also one of those things
so
where
it's everlasting,
and it's very, I don't want to say it's universal, but it's a very widely enjoyed movie. So there's a lot of people from different backgrounds find it funny.
Yeah,
and I'm coming back to my original point here, so we'll definitely talk about the comedy more. But I think what stuck out to me watching it this time, which is something I've always known, which maybe is underestimated a little bit, but Coming to America does have tension. It has stakes because you want to see Akeem actually find love because he believes in it,
right?
And, with his bride-to-be eventually. I mean, I guess it is kind of classic stuff, but their romance is sweet and believable because of just how well Eddie Murphy sells kind of the innocence and the pure goodness of the character. And I think it comes off as it's pure, but I believe it. It's not unbelievable.
And also...
like an OC with Peter Gallagher sort of thing.
Actually, yes.
You believe the goodness.
Very true. But also with his character... yes, this is a story maybe we've seen a lot, but one thing we don't actually see a lot is the woman in question who's dating this guy, jerky guy, the other guy steps in. We see
that's
that.
That's classic, yeah.
But the thing we don't see a lot is Akeem has a lot of money, but she doesn't know that.
Yes.
She falls for actually the nice, just the nice guy, not the rich guy,
not the title,
and that's a little bit of a subversion, I think, too.
And that's a good point, and I think that's also a great kind of message it has about
absolutely
falling for each other for love and for the person and your goals and your beliefs and what works better for you rather than going for materialism or money.
Right.
Which they make it pretty clear that the guy with money is a jerk.
Right.
Which is pretty strong, but I like that it's great because he is trying to get the woman without pulling anything and trying to show off.
It would be very easy to say to her, "Look, I'm a prince.
I can give you whatever you want."
Right, and he doesn't do any of that.
But he's really respectful to her and really admires her and her good qualities, and that's what attracts him to her. Even when he's up there with the preacher with all the girls showing off, and this is the best. The queen test off. Pick one, let's go. That's what they all. But that's one thing I think is really enduring, and just the train scene, like when King Jafar comes, James Earl Jones comes and is like with the build up and tells her like, "Hey, you don't know my son."
Yeah.
Of course, he couldn't be really interested in you. She, of course, that's the classic lie reveal that hits her harder because she thinks that she wasn't really that.
Right.
And the acting with that, the timing's really good. And really, you aren't sure at the end. You're not entirely sure. Like, okay, is she going to come back? And then the ending, spoilers, it's kind of a surprise.
A little bit.
Yeah. She's there. Like, you're not 100% sure how they're going to go back. And then, it does
once
work
they
out.
lift the veil, then you see.
But I guess if I was going to say, like, of course a lot of comedies can be funny, and I think that's a key. There has to be that heart there, too, that maybe cuts it above.
I think that's generally true.
Can you think of other examples so I'm not completely off the cuff here? Maybe are there some other great ones, maybe?
I mean, I think most of the great comedies that are not forged in like satire, let's say.
Gags.
Like, I mean, Spinal Tap, Naked Gun. I mean,
like that's an example.
These are hilarious movies, but yeah, I mean, that's a little bit different, I would say.
That's more of a spoof. Yeah.
That's more of a spoof. But look, one of my all-time favorite comedies is Bridesmaids.
Oh yeah.
And I think that certainly
Some
has
drama.
a lot of drama and a lot of heart.
Oh yeah.
There's some stakes. And you could say the same about Mean Girls, which is also one of my favorites.
Maybe I'm answering my own question here. It's kind of like the action rule. Like, you can have a lot of action, and if it's great action, but you don't care about the characters, the story, it's just noise.
Yes, you need to care about the people, certainly.
Do you think that helps the jokes land harder?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do. Well, and we talked about this a lot when we did the Frasier episodes. I mean, part of the humor after a while with Frasier was
getting to know
knowing the characters. Mm-hmm. So they could just do a line, and it was funnier because you knew the character.
And the way they were delivering it, because, that's the kind of thing they do. You get kind of accustomed to it. I think the heart is definitely something I want to mention, which maybe I didn't quite as much last time, that I think is a great thing. The romance is, in some ways, conventional, but in some ways not. And well executed, well acted.
Well, and to be honest,
chemistry.
I think we got away from a lot of that in the last 20 years or so, because you had the rise of Will Ferrell and Adam Sandler,
gags.
and I like some of their movies, but
they're more
maybe there's a little heart there too, but for the most, like Anchorman,
it's more about
it's just being silly and outrageous and over the top,
physical comedy,
and
and like visual gags, and more about shock. It's more about shock in the last 20 years.
Than like American Pie,
like for instance, not to bash on Anchorman. I know it's got fans, and I think it's funny. I think Anchorman is perhaps known more for those jokes than for the. I don't remember the story of Anchorman.
Absolutely, I don't know what the story is.
I forget. I've seen it. And
I know there was a big fight between the news stations, and they had a big thing in the alley, whatever. And
I think that's a movie you go to see because certain people are doing characters which are funny. But does Anchorman have as much heart as maybe some other movies?
I would say no.
I don't think so.
I would say no. And one of the other things we can talk about specifically with this movie is
how good it is.
Coming to America is how good it is. But one of the gripes I heard from a lot of people, I follow a couple different movie fan pages on Facebook, and one of them, a lot of people were like, "Oh, this is the new one's PG-13. Well, this is going to be horrible." Da 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 da. But here was my point. Mm-hmm. This first movie is actually a family movie. Yeah. I mean, we didn't watch a lot of R-rated movies when I was a kid, but we were allowed to watch this. Because if you strip away the F-bombs, there's really no sex in the movie. There's a little bit of nudity at the beginning, but
jokes.
It's not sexual nudity. It's just sort of...
general, she's naked.
Right, she's naked. And she's one of the, the servants, so haha, whatever. But there's no real sex in it. Other than the F-bombs, like the funniest lines from the movie, other than maybe Samuel L. Jackson's scene.
Well, FU2
is good, pretty good. But like all the barbershop stuff.
That's pretty clean.
Most of the movie really it's a family movie because it's got so much heart. Because these characters are honestly, Akeem is a character to look up to.
He's a kind of a, I guess you could say wow, I'm drawing a blank here. He is.
Is he an everyman? Is that what you're going to say?
Well, he's
because he's royal, but
he's got everyman qualities, but he's kind of a role model. In some ways,
he really is.
I think
he's a hard worker.
Because
he gets to New York and doesn't want to use his money for anything. He wants to get a job.
He's generous.
He's very generous with what
money
he does have.
It, yeah.
But he wants to live in a slum. He wants to live.
He wants to be.
He wants to live.
He wants
like
to be
the quote unquote common man.
He wants to learn about people, understand people, and he wants to also be true to himself and his values, and not try to compromise and live inauthentically.
Because how easy would it have been? I mean, obviously we wouldn't have the movie, but how easy would it have been?
Plot.
He goes to New York and just offers Mr. McDowell, $1 million.
I will,
to marry his daughter, whatever. But he was a hard worker. He was the last one there at night mopping and everything.
That's why he wants to learn the American ways, and he goes to the barbershop.
Yeah.
I want to try to find a way to get her. And they're like, well, you
go to church.
Yeah. And go with the father.
You're right.
And then you get with the American girl. You have to show your father you're worth it. So he's like, I will do my best values. And of course, he just thinks he's so weird.
He is a role model.
Yeah, he's a good role model.
Yeah.
And he learns how to mop, and that's good. I think that's good. And Oh, and I just wanted to go the hard left. I mean, we'll bounce around.
Hard left, okay.
Maybe not the hard left, but I as good as Eddie Murphy is, and I think that, I mean, it's such a great. It's also very different than a lot of other characters he does.
Yeah.
When we watch the sequel, I realized, wow, he's usually a little more. He's more of the straight man.
Yes.
And when you were reviewing the sequel, I realized that more.
Very much in the sequel.
And he does a little more of that in the sequel for sure, but he is kind of more the straight man in comparison to Arsenio Hall.
As Akeem.
As
the barbershop guy.
As all the other people.
As the singer. Obviously, he's doing more bits.
But also, and I think, Coming to America kind of started that, and I think that, I don't know if you probably agree with this, but I don't think that Eddie Murphy gets as much credit as being such a good actor, because think about it, he can do this kind of serious good character who's quite different than a lot of his other main roles, and also do these bits and makeup where he's really outrageous, and it's great.
And I think he actually probably, it's an inferior film to this, obviously, but I think he actually perfected that with Nutty Professor. Because the dinner scene where he's literally 5 of the 6 characters are him. I mean, that's some talent. Playing off of yourself like that. I mean, imagine how long that took to shoot.
Because you figure you got to do in your seat with one bit of makeup.
Right.
Hopefully get all those takes down.
Right.
Remember how your character's reacting.
Yeah.
I'm guessing he wrote those or produced.
I'm sure he
heavily
did.
Involved.
And then you had to also get the doubles that were portraying him from the back, when they were sitting in the certain way.
Get the timing down and probably the dubbing over it. It's like
whereas
editing that
in this, I think the only time there's more than one of him in the same scene would be the barbershop scenes where there's 2 Eddie Murphys in the barbershop and Akeem.
Yes. And I think is there an Arsenio and there's another...
And there's an Arsenio in the barbershop and
the other
obviously
actor.
Semi, and then the other actor, which by the way...
He was still in the sequel.
I remember
you mentioned... Yeah, I remember you were like, he's not there. I'm like, wait, he's in
I
your
forgot
video.
to mention this in my video too, but...
You're like, it's unbelievable. This still alive. I'm like, that guy's still around.
That guy, I forget his real name, Kurt something, I think. But he is a childhood friend of Eddie Murphy's.
Oh.
He has done very few films. He did 48 Hours.
Nice.
He did The Firm, actually. He was in The Firm, which I didn't realize.
Wow.
And then he literally didn't act for almost 30 years.
But he came back
like Alex Winter and Bill and Ted's.
That's great.
Came out of retirement for his buddy Eddie Murphy to be in this movie. And
that's wonderful.
I thought he was very funny in it.
Honestly,
he didn't skip a beat.
Stepped right back.
They only had a couple of barbershop scenes, unfortunately,
but a bit up there. But hey, I thought that was great.
I thought that was great.
Unbelievable. I'm like, no, well, the one guy's still around.
Yeah, I know. Well, and of course he was like the young buck of the
bunch
of the people.
He's the guy you never met. Martin Luther King. Like, he's that guy. I was like shutting.
Whereas the old Jewish man that Eddie Murphy plays, he was like 80 in the first one. There's no way he'd be alive, but that's hilarious.
That is.
That he is.
Some people are like longevity, and some people age badly, or whatever. It's a comedy.
Yeah,
it's
comedy.
We'll talk more about the sequel in a bit, but you're right though. Great. Also, great character, the old Jewish guy.
Oh my God, one of my favorites in the whole movie, actually.
So good. He's got his stereotypes down, but
so good.
But I don't really. Once again, though, it's interesting, and maybe Eddie Murphy does this more. I guess he is can be a bit controversial in some of his stand-up and stuff. But even with those characters, I know he's doing caricatures, but even with the old Jewish guy, I don't think it's meant to be mean-spirited.
Not at all.
It's kind of sweet in a way.
Not at all. Yeah. And here's the thing.
What do you know from Funny, you bastard?
you had mentioned about him, being the straight man more so than a lot of his other roles, and I agree with that. As
Akeem, yeah.
Like when we think about the Eddie Murphy movies that were up to this point. You had the 48 Hours movies, which we
just watched.
You had seen them before, I had not. But that's obviously, I think, more action-oriented. But he's certainly the comic relief of those movies. Beverly Hills Cop. Yeah. That's almost a one-man show of Murphy being funny and outrageous. And then, of course, all his Saturday Night Live characters.
Reacting.
And then the 2 stand-up specials. So it's like he was known for being fall-down funny, da-da-da-da-da. Yeah. And yes, as Akeem, he's funny-ish. But the reason I think this movie holds up so well is because it's not one of the reasons I should say it's not a showcase for Eddie Murphy's like stand-up comedy or anything. Like, I think kind of Beverly Hills Cop maybe is a little more that.
Probably. This isn't all just based around Eddie Murphy himself.
And the bits that he mainly does comes through the other characters, not through the main character of the movie, Akeem.
And them reacting to him and vice versa.
Right.
That's true. And, well, I guess finally getting to my hard left. See, we couldn't get off Eddie Murphy that easy.
You're right.
I was going to say, I don't know. I just love Arsenio Hall, and I wish that he just did more things. Like, he's so funny in this movie.
He is. He's great in this movie. I was an Arsenio fan way back. I used to watch his show literally every night. I mean, it was for the kids. I mean, you had Johnny Carson,
the teens,
who obviously, skewed a little older. And I would flip around, me. But Arsenio came on a half hour earlier than everybody else. He came on at 11, so I would always watch the monologue and usually the first guest. And then maybe I'd flip over to something else. But I watched Arsenio almost every night.
Nice.
I loved that show. And I'd never heard of him until this movie.
Okay.
I guess he was doing stand-up or whatever around the LA scene. But
I guess he's buddies with Eddie Murphy. He did this. He did Harlem Nights.
Harlem Nights, they were in together afterwards.
But I don't know any other movies he did until the sequel.
Arsenio actually fell kind of out of the spotlight for a while. I don't know if he was producing. He's done a couple of TV shows here or there. He did actually a revival of Star Search. He was the host of that. But, for the most part, he's just kind of been...
Doing stuff. Maybe producing, I don't know. Maybe writing.
Hey,
it's cool. Do whatever you want. But it's just I just think as a comedic actor...
But he's great in this movie.
At least with Eddie Murphy. I mean, for this character, Semi is just so... Has some of the best, jabs. Because he's so disgruntled about his station. He'd be the person who's just... Even though he's not royal... He's resenting this whole thing. Thinks everything's beneath him. It's such a great contrast with Akeem being so kind of pure and.
Well, I think he has more of the sensibilities of the king.
A good king.
He has more of the sensibilities of the James Earl Jones character.
He's like what's expected traditionally. Why would you go look for a woman who's got thoughts of her own? Just go for the pretty. He would have been perfectly fine with the wife and that was being presented.
Yeah.
With the giant.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, but Arsenio Hall is great. Just with great timing. Though, all right, here's a potential negative for you.
Okay.
Just because I think I've even heard you say negative things about
I have a negative about the film. You know what it is.
Well, maybe
we'll get to it.
Okay, well then maybe this isn't it. I have heard, I like it, but I have heard some people riff about the dance number.
Yes, that is...
Is that the negative?
My negative on the whole is just a little bit of the unevenness of the comedy.
Okay.
Because I think all of the stuff in New York is pretty much gold.
Oh, you don't like the early stuff.
But the early stuff, and actually the later stuff, like the stuff on the subway, is very sweet. When he goes to chase after her. It's very sweet, but it's not funny.
True.
This movie packs so much humor into
the middle,
and not even the middle.
Maybe
just really after the first 20 minutes and the last 10 minutes.
It's all comedy.
It's all these Fast and Furious jokes.
So it's
hilarious. I just think it's a little bit uneven in that sense.
Well, are you saying that maybe in something like Bridesmaids, where I know it's pretty dramatic for a little while, it's handled a little?
Well,
better?
It's more dramatic a little bit in the middle, though. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean with Bridesmaids, whereas this it's bookended. For example, when I showed it to my nephew, I think he was a little bored with those parts, and I can see why.
Even the opening.
Yeah,
because I think
he liked the woman, but.
Well, look, I might have to disagree
and a couple of the gags.
A little bit, because, at least in my family, royal penis is clean, your highness.
That part is classic.
Get shit jokes. Him talking about the curse words that Simi gives them when they're fighting, sweat from baboon's balls. There's funny stuff.
They're okay.
When Eddie Murphy does an obvious stunt double, that's funny.
Yeah.
That some of we haven't talked to him in a year.
I like when he calls the elephant Babar. That's fine.
That James Earl Jones is we haven't talked to him in a year. You've been a mustache because the table's long.
Yeah.
These are funny gags. Maybe not.
I don't know.
They're not maybe not the cream, but they're good. They're good.
I think you could set that movie up in about 7 minutes and have him in America. They do this whole elaborate dance number. And look, I get it.
Number,
it's a bit of satire towards excess. And I actually much preferred the big
in the second
extreme number in the second
with
one.
all the different pop stars.
Yes.
And stuff.
I actually preferred that because I thought it was more logical to the plot, for one thing.
I'll tell you what, they integrated a little better into the plot, and there's more variety. It's like 5 minutes of just this really well choreographed, I guess, traditional sort of...
Too long, to me.
Honestly, I could see it being a problem,
Yeah.
but we always kind of enjoyed it. It's just ridiculous. And I mean,
Look,
clearly that's where most of the budget probably went, is in that dance.
I know.
number.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
So, I mean...
It was well choreographed. Paul Abdul did it again, love her.
That's right. So, I figured that... So, okay. So, some minor issues. Yeah, you don't think the very beginning and very ending of the movie is funny.
I really don't. The ending of the movie is not funny.
Though I feel like you could... Which I'd
it's
argue...
just not. Which is fine, because by then,
like I said, that's
we
the
love the
drama.
character so much, and that's the heart of the movie.
And to be fair, you got the serious part, and then the movie's basically...
I mind it more in the beginning.
I don't know. I guess I will agree with you that definitely the best jokes are in most of the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
When they're actually in America, which makes sense. But I think there's plenty of funny stuff in the beginning. It's not like... I mean...
Well, I guess part of my issue maybe is
it's
because,
more
like we've talked about, Akeem is kind of the straight man.
True.
James Earl Jones is not very funny in this because he's the stoic king. The wife is not very funny.
No.
Good mother.
They're kind of out of it. Yeah.
They're a little out of touch. And so, yes, Arsenio Hall Semi is kind of funny, but...
I guess he's the funniest part. Wait. What about the wife? Bark like a dog.
That's good.
That's
good.
Classic.
And maybe even better in the second movie.
It has payoff, yeah.
It has payoff. Yeah, I mean, listen. Now that we know about the second movie, right?
I figured that was what we always were speculating about.
32-year payoff on a joke is pretty good.
So there you go.
That's pretty solid.
They planted that seed.
But, of course, when I've said that to you before, I hadn't seen the second one. But anyway, and the second one didn't exist.
But we still like it.
But when you think about all the funny things in the movie, right?
Sure.
That are surrounding Akeem. Mm-hmm. You've got the barbers. Mm-hmm. You've got the preacher at the fundraiser.
Sure.
You've got Cleo McDowell, John Amos.
McDowell.
Fantastic. Louis Anderson, Samuel L. Jackson.
You don't have to tell me. I know.
But this is the point. Mm-hmm. When we're in those first 20 minutes of the movie,
it's not really...
You don't have a lot of funny characters. It's a lot of build up to the story. We get it. You're rich. It's fine. Look. I am splitting hairs about an A+ film.
Yeah, I was about to say, it sounds like... I can't think of any comedy where every single joke...
I just think the dance sequence is way too long.
It is.
I think they should have gotten to America much quicker than they did. That's all.
How long did it take them to get to America?
My 20 minutes might be an exaggeration.
Okay.
But at least 10.
Okay. How about this joke?
Tell me.
When they
Royal Penis is Clean is a great joke.
Okay, you always sound like you hate that one.
No, it's great. It's just the go-to.
I know.
It's the only example for the beginning of the movie.
There's a few.
But
how about this? How about where in New York can a man find a woman of grace, intelligence, taste, and culture
fit for a king?
Queens.
That's good.
Come on.
Yes, that's fine.
That's good. That's good. That's in Zamunda, technically.
Yeah.
Then they go to America.
But then they go to Queens immediately.
That's fun. And that's an example of see how diverse that is? That's a good play on words. It's funny, clean, family friendly. Some people might not think it's as funny, but it worked for me. Logical.
One might say they probably came up with the title of the show, The King of Queens, from that joke.
It's quite possible.
It's possible. Oh, by the way, Eddie Murphy has claimed something about this first movie, and I think it's true.
Okay.
When what's-his-face, the lead singer of Sexual Chocolate, storms off the stage.
Mr. Randy Watson.
That it is the first ever mic drop. What? Eddie Murphy has been claiming this recently in promotions for this movie. And
on film?
I think he's right.
On film. Or
no, I mean
exaggerating
in a pop culture sense.
Just putting the
because people have said rappers have been doing that for years. But
the accepted that was a mic drop.
In recent interviews, he has defied people to find footage that predates Coming to America of a mic drop,
like over the top,
purposeful mic drop.
Boom.
And no one's been able to do it
to make a statement. And just
I think it might be the first.
Now that
trendsetter.
Talk about innovative.
Yeah.
Wow. Well,
and that's a great part of the movie.
That is. It's hilarious. And all right.
Okay, here's the simplicity of the jokes of this movie, right?
Well, yeah,
because there's so many jokes that are barely jokes.
It's just like
but yet they're so funny. Like, for example, Louis Anderson.
He's barely in it.
Talking about,
that's great.
I'm on,
right.
I'm working my way up.
Used to be on cleaning due to like this. Now I'm cleaning lettuce. Soon I'll be doing burgers, then fries, then the krill, and then
that's when the big bucks start.
A year or two.
Or a year or two,
make assistant manager, and then that's when the big bucks start rolling. Just 2 years, huh?
That build up,
that whole skit,
and every line is funny. But because of the delivery
of Louis Anderson, he's so honest
and because
believing
Kim is so interested, And
of course, Semi is reacting like, "Oh, this is horrible."
Right.
But from his perspective, this is terrible. And I think that anybody who's ever worked in any kind of job in a restaurant or something like that, like, wow, it is a slog to get up through there. And I related it to more when I grew up after working.
Yeah, I mean, my first job was McDonald's, so I got it.
You got it.
I certainly did. But even when they're at the fundraiser and Randy Watson singing, just such a simple joke as
him singing
that
badly.
boy's. Well, yeah, he sings badly.
But the key is that reaction,
for
the
him.
conversation.
For him, our friend from the barbershop, the only one that's not Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall, when he says,
the guy that came
that boy's good.
That boy's good.
And then the retort is, yeah, good and terrible. That's such a stupid, simple line.
It's just people talking.
But it's hilarious.
Because it seems like grouchy old men arguing about something.
Yes.
And that little guy, I forget his name, but the guy that came back.
Yeah, it's Clint something.
Clint something. The fact that
Smith,
he comes back and he's still like really happy about, doesn't really care about the other guy's opinion.
No.
It echoes
still loves
the barbershop debates.
Yes.
They just love to argue. And he just doesn't matter. All right, and I got a question for you about Randy Watson.
Okay.
Because
great
person, actually. Mm-hmm. This is another sign, I think, of a great movie, is being able to watch it and get something new from it every time.
Okay.
And I think Coming to America is actually one of those. All right, I, for a long time, kind of went along with the joke of he's just bad and we're supposed to accept that.
Right.
But I kind of wondered something about that. Eddie Murphy is singing, right? Yeah. So he's singing kind of badly, but having listened to a lot of music, it's not that bad. It's clearly like intentionally bad for the joke. So can Eddie Murphy actually sing?
Yes, Eddie Murphy put out a record
because it's out of tune
in the 80s.
And he is kind of singing with it.
Here's the brilliance of that character.
It's like it still kind of works. Like I still like listening to it even though it's bad.
You have to actually be a very good singer.
To intentionally sing
sing that off.
But still with the melody.
And he's with the melody, of course. But did you ever notice that there is there is a slight whistle.
Yes.
When Randy Watson sings a little bit.
A little bit.
That is hard to do.
It's like a slight lisp he's going for.
Almost.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I really.
But in the singing sense.
That character only has one scene in the movie, but it makes such an impression, and I really get that.
I've literally seen people wearing sexual chocolate shirts. I mean, that one scene in this movie is a phenomenon.
I think it sweeps to
It does sweep to it, much like the mopping at McDowell's. I got it.
It's been a long day, but I think it speaks to the heart of the movie too. Because watching it again, I didn't. We were actually my family and I were talking about it, and just how when the lady comes on. What's her name again? His bride to be.
Lisa McDowell.
Lisa McDowell. When Lisa comes up there, Lisa, of course, how can I forget? Lisa, when she comes up, she's like, okay, well, I do appreciate the message of the song, and it actually does have a good message about believing in yourself, and it's good, and it is sweet.
Yeah.
And
the Randy Watson song.
The Randy Watson song.
Yeah, it's Greatest Love of All by Whitney Houston.
Oh, I didn't know it.
Yeah.
But that makes sense then. But I like the fact he chose it, and he manages to bring so much life to this character because he's clearly trying his best. He believes in the music.
Yeah.
And he gets. Okay, here's a question because I don't.
And it makes sense that he wouldn't have heard that song in Zamunda. I mean, yeah, it was a big hit in the States, but I mean, he probably would never have heard that song before.
Okay, well,
so for him, it's like this big,
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's new for me. See, I learned something new. I didn't know that. Okay.
Now
of course,
we know.
Big Whitney Houston fan.
Well, I love Whitney. I can't deny it.
But he obviously got so into that character that he shows so much emotion when he does the mic drop. He goes, "Sexual chocolate."
Yes.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
Because I don't know the answer.
Okay.
When he does the mic drop and he's kind of yelling, is it because he thinks he's so great and he's so into the song, or is he kind of a little mad that he knows nobody likes him?
I think he's mad at the reaction. You know, because you hear like some slight clapping.
Give it up again.
You know, and then you hear, of course, the barbershop guy that loves him really clapping, but he's the only one.
I forget. Did Akeem clap? Or do we never see it?
I don't know if we ever see that.
I'm sure.
I don't know.
I'm sure Sammy didn't.
But no, I think he is getting mad because he's not getting the response he wants.
I couldn't tell. I thought he was so into it that he was like, yeah, and then he just kind of walks off.
No, I think it's because the audience is terrible.
I think they could have been a little more into it for the event.
I agree.
That's kind of the joke.
Charity fundraiser.
That's the funniest that he never really hates him so much, and that's kind of why we love him a little bit. It's like, oh, but that's great, and I love Lisa comes up there and it's kind of like in his own unique way. Like she knows it's bad, but she's so nice. She kind of gives him a little and then talks about the kids and just a great contract. Oh, and that leads to another good joke with shows that the barbershop guys are good, giving money, and the one guy puts in chicken.
Oh my God!
I thought it was the garbage.
I thought it was
donations,
the trash.
Donations. What are you doing? See, it's a great mixture.
Yeah. That's the thing. I mean, there's
so many different types of jokes.
Yes,
too.
there's like there is some like dumb humor, and there's also some maybe a little bit blue humor.
There's visual gags like you got when Soul Glow guy comes back.
Oh my God! When they get off the couch, that's obviously a huge visual gag where their afro sheen is still there.
By the way,
the marks on the couch.
Every time I hear the commercial, just let your soul glow.
I was very disappointed that they didn't reference Soul Glow in the new movie. That's just so good.
It's every time I'm it's so good.
It really is. That was one of the things we loved the most when I was a kid.
Yeah, we're starting to delve into just talking about the bits, but that's a great one. And that's fine. We'll get through them all probably. I love that Sam Jackson basically established every character he'd ever be in this movie.
Yeah, with that couple of minutes of dialogue and a great scene.
And I love that the martial arts thing is tied into that.
Martial arts thing tied into that, and the jerk. Fiance Eric Lasalle is there, and we see what kind of a yellow belly he is.
Not brave at all.
Yeah,
and, man. Interesting thing too. I like that actor. He's shown up on other things.
Eric Lasalle. He was in ER. That's really where he was big.
I saw him pop up and things. He was in Logan, actually.
That's right.
Yeah, he was.
Yes, he was.
I like that guy. And this is the first thing I ever saw him in, obviously, and. He does a good job of playing a snaky, kind of, despicable bad boyfriend. And you could argue maybe they lay it on thick. He doesn't donate to the kids. Like, wow.
Yeah.
But I guess
it seems kind of
realistic.
People that par for the course. And then he kisses the dad's butt.
All the time, too much. And then, man, that whole thing. I guess you could argue that Coming to America is kind of very feminist about female empowerment.
Oh, yeah.
Remember how, obviously he and the dad try to conspire to just say, she's definitely going to marry you and push that without her consent or knowledge. It's like, and she's like, no, that's not what I wanted.
Well, and don't forget, it's also the queen that sort of breaks the tradition and tells Sammy to go after, or tells Akeem to go after her.
Go after her. See, the mom is good. Maybe not funny, but very nice.
She's not funny, but I didn't say she wasn't a good character.
Good mom character. Yeah. Definitely being the mom. And of course, at the end says, hey, you're the king, you can change it.
Yeah.
Which was a great point, obviously. So I think there's some of that there. And with the LaSalle character, they do kind of try to redeem him a little by saying, okay, he's been rained on. He was kind of confused. He got bitten a lot. And then he gets with the sister, kind of. Which is a weird sort of.
Very weird.
I love the sister, though.
Yeah, the sister's good. I don't think she was in the sequel.
I don't think she was.
Because
she wasn't, because they weren't in Queens very long.
I guess that makes sense.
We'll talk about that later.
Well, we'll talk about it.
But I love the sister. She's great. She's actually very fun. She's fun. She's a believable character.
She really is into the whole royalty thing.
And I love that twist. There's some good visual. Also, another one of the things that always cracks us up watching with the family is that build-up when he comes back after Mr. McDowell finds out that Akeem's the prince. He's the prince.
Oh my God!
And it keeps slamming the door. He's stumbling. He's
really trying to make everything good for them.
Like some Three Stooges kind of stuff going there, like little farcical stuff.
How about all the rose petals?
Rose petals.
Classic.
That's a classic gag from Zamunda.
That's a good visual gag.
That's a good visual gag. Anyone who throws roses
at my son's feet, like, who's gonna clean this up?
Says, well, answer to me. Yeah, the barbershop. Who's gonna clean this up?
Yeah,
that's pretty great. That's ridiculous. I do like when he mispronounced his name. Aeolian.
No, yeah.
Whatever.
So now, okay. So what do you think is the thing that keeps this above other comedies of the era and still lasting generations later? Because there's a lot of good, funny movies from this era. Even Beverly Hills Cop, though. I mean, like, people don't talk about that, and that was probably a bigger hit when it was out. But, you know, of all the comedies of the time, because Eddie Murphy's star has certainly ebbed and flowed. I mean, he was on top of the world here in the 80s with this, and then a couple movies after. But then, you know, a little bit of a dip, and then he came back with Nutty Professor, and that was big. Dipped again, came back with the Shrek movies. Yeah. And then dipped again for quite a while. Yeah. He had that Dreamgirls, which was very good, but then that was the only kind of plus in there. And then until the last couple of years, you know, he hasn't really been doing too many good things.
I guess I can think of maybe a couple answers. I think that it's quite possible that from a writing perspective, I think that this might be Eddie Murphy at his peak.
Yep.
I think that the variety of so many different jokes is definitely a factor. Because like we said, there's so many different types that it makes it so universal. Because we've talked about it, and quite frankly, some people have even, when I brought it up in the past, I think on Zoom and with other people, it's like some people have been like a little surprised to hear that I grew up with it and loved it.
Yeah.
Because quite frankly, I think there might have been the perception that this is kind of an African American black sort of movie, obviously with a lot of people behind it, so maybe it's more for the sensibilities. But there's something very universal about the story, the characters, and just the humor that I think touches across all different backgrounds. Like, so many different people can find something to enjoy in it, and it's so balanced. Like, it is mostly a lot of strong comedy with that heart, and I mean, even with all the Zamunda stuff, there's a little bit of a satire of excess, of wealth, of the fairy tale story. Like, there's so much going on that's so intricately weaved that I guess a lot of other comedies of the era might be good, but they're very straightforward in terms of their goals and genre. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do. And in fact, I want to build on a couple of those things that you said.
Go ahead.
A couple of those points.
Maybe I was right.
I'll start with the last one you made. This movie, I think, is not a black movie.
No.
You know, and I think a lot of, certainly the movies of that era, like 70s, you had the blaxploitation films.
Yep.
Eddie Murphy, in 48 Hours, the race was a little more of an issue because it was the classic, you know,
white cop,
white cop, black criminal, that old gag. Now, Beverly Hills Cop, you can probably tell me. I don't know how much race plays a factor there.
I don't have as much memory of Beverly Hills Cop. I gotta watch it again, but I'm pretty sure he does have gags that kind of lean into that. But I think Beverly Hills Cop is a little more wholesome, but it's much more focused on the action, the cop jokes, some of the standard routines of you're the rogue cop, you know, we're gonna fire you. You know, he's the guy with kind of a rogue, basically. The rogue
like,
cop.
if you think about this movie, think about it even in terms of, like, today. You've heard, you know, about the Harry and Meghan interview and all this with Oprah, where they, you know, went away from the royal family and all this. Okay.
I can't classify it very easily into, like, one thing.
But that's the thing. It's like this Zamunda and them being from an African nation.
That's different.
It's different, but it could be applied to anything. It could be applied to the royals in England.
Yes.
Where people are trying to, you know, break free from that mold or whatever.
I got one for you. It's also kind of a great, pretty universal, like, especially, I guess, female audiences and really audiences in general, the whole getting swept off your feet by the prince. But you've got, you know, the whole sweeping prince narrative of, like...
I mean, this is...
But reversing that a little bit.
I never really think of it in these terms, but this is really a romantic comedy.
And that's weird.
Because romance is really at the heart of it.
It is. It's about trying to find your true love.
But I've never thought of it as that.
Because there's so many different skits and bits and jokes around it that it's almost hidden.
Yeah.
Like, I never would have thought it at first. It's like an ensemble thing.
Right. Like, I think of this in terms of genre as a similar type of movie from the 80s, let's say, as like Police Academy or something where it's like, it's a lot of jokes, it's an ensemble, but at its heart, this really is a romantic comedy,
and like
as much as anything else.
Police Academy is a good example because it's obviously got all these different jokes around it, but it's kind of sort of a coming of age movie.
A little bit.
Which is pretty universal too.
Yeah,
but
I would agree with that.
But it doesn't advertise itself as such because there's so many good jokes going on. See, there's a lot going on, but it's not banging you over the head with any message in particular.
Right.
Really.
Well, but I think that is what makes this movie so universal, is that it isn't necessarily a black story, even though Louis Anderson is literally, the only white person in the whole movie.
Except for the cab driver.
And
the one lady at the, was it Western Union or whatever? She's pretty funny.
I guess so, yeah.
I think
white.
that's it.
Well, I have a story about that, actually, that I just learned about when they were doing the press tour for the new one. Is our Arsenio Total story that Paramount told them they had to have one white person at least in the movie. For,
to sell it.
Wouldn't sell it right or whatever.
Wow.
So they actually picked Louis because Eddie had known him on the stand-up circuit. And so that's how he got in the movie. But
that's cool.
Very cool. But it's rare. Like, when you think about movies that are made today with a predominantly cast of any type, whether it's, black, Asian, white, whatever, mostly those movies are for that specific demographic.
Yeah.
Like the Medea movies, for example.
Like they think that a certain type of person is going to see it more than likely.
Right. And, look, obviously the industry's a lot different now. Everything's so cherry-picked to, we got to have the demos and whatever.
Yeah.
Back then it wasn't
as opposed to trying to appeal to a wide audience because you didn't have all that data widely available.
Right. Which,
has its pros and cons.
I was going to say, questionable whether that's a positive. But one of the other points you made was exactly what I think about this movie and Eddie Murphy's stature at the time. This is a person at his absolute peak of popularity, and every movie was just hitting. Even Golden Child was a pretty sizable hit.
I enjoyed it.
And then Beverly Hills Cop, and then this, and he was still so young. When you think of other, like the most classic movie from, some certain comedians, right? It's not usually the first one out of the gate or maybe the second one. It's usually like the third or fourth one or something that just hits right at the right time.
So and it's kind of like the musical album rule. Like your first one's usually not your best.
That could be actually. But I think about like people that were like Eddie Murphy on sketch shows. Jim Carrey was building a big fan base on In Living Color. He did Ace Ventura, it was popular. Did The Mask, that was popular. But Dumb and Dumber is the one that people still talk about the most, I think, today.
Oh, wow.
Maybe. And Sandler came from SNL like Eddie Murphy. He was on there for a while. He did a couple of stupid movies. Then he did Madison. People like Madison, but people love Happy Gilmore. That's like the one.
That is the one. Well, I think SNL is just a good platform for really not only writing good comedy, but also being able to know chemistry and timing between actors.
Yeah,
and
that's very true.
Eddie Murphy probably refined a lot of that. In this movie, think about it, it's a lot of really well-integrated skits into a plot.
It actually kind of is.
Which is pretty brilliant because that's what they are, but they seem so seamless.
It seems completely fluid because of how it's constructed. I would say the biggest maybe quote-unquote sketch you could say, it's actually something we haven't even brought up yet, is when him and Arsenio go to the club. Oh. And it's just the cavalcade of the women that
clearly
come through.
Improving and stuff.
That's obviously like a bit.
Has some funny stuff.
And something they, again, brought back in the sequel.
And that was a good part. I will tell you, I haven't mentioned it yet, but I think I know what my favorite running gag in Coming to America is. What I think the funniest thing for me is that I love, and maybe it's super obvious, but we have not talked about it yet. And I wanted to, it ties into what got the biggest laugh from me from the sequel was. And
is it McDowell's? Okay.
It's the whole McDowell's thing when he goes through, got the gold notches. We got the gold notches. And
my brother and I probably it's that
it's
or
he's so
the barbershop guys I think is what we quote most.
Dismissive about
but,
it. Well, actually, the Martin Luther King thing is pretty great.
Yeah, the stuff with the barbershop, Martin Luther King. My dad loves that line. That's his favorite line of the whole movie.
Because he punches a guy. You're like, what? This story's obviously made up. And you're like, no, you never met him.
Which, as a kid, I didn't pick up on. But maybe, my dad at one point was like, you realize that's funny because Martin Luther King would never go around punching random people.
Because the nonviolent thing. But there's another side to it. Is the vague possibility that guy could be telling the truth, and it's the one time he got so ticked off at somebody that he actually punched somebody and it just happened to him. And
it
so either way,
it
kind of works.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Works not just one way.
Not just one way. In fact, you could even say it works a third way. It's possible that story did happen, but with a person that wasn't Martin Luther King. He just thought he was. Like he looked like him or something.
And that's the bit they said he never met Frank Sinatra.
So yeah, so many good bits. But yes, McDowell's is great.
It's just, I think just the commentary on obviously the franchise and McDonald's is
yes.
Just him so obviously
and
ripping
that
it off
back in the sequel
is great.
In such a great way. It was one of my favorite scenes of the new one, for sure. Yeah, and it's there again, much like the good and terrible bit. Like McDowell's is such a it's almost so obvious.
It's so obvious you think, okay, this is...
And yet they do...
a couple bits with this.
So many different things with it.
They keep doing so much with because it's a riff on McDonald's.
And then the people come in to take the pictures of it because the McDonald's people are always on my back.
Oh, you wonder why. He's honestly like... But I never caught this joke before. I never caught it until this time. Is that I think one time when they're visiting Mr. McDowell in his office, he actually is literally reading from the McDonald's handbook.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
I saw it and I was like, oh man, so he is trying to steal all their... So he's clearly... But because it's slightly different, it's technically not the same thing, but it's on such a line that it's like BS.
And the movie has become so ubiquitous with pop culture. Do you remember that on the 30th anniversary of this movie a few years ago, several McDonald's, I think in New York and LA... became McDowell's for like a month or whatever.
That's so great.
Or the weekend or whatever it was. But isn't that great?
That's
McDonald's even got in on the joke because it's so well played. It's so everlasting. And people just love this movie.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really... See, and that says a lot too.
Yeah.
That's so great.
Should we talk a little bit about the sequel here?
Yeah, a little bit. We could go into a bit. I think I felt about the same way about it you did. It was kind of like in the B range or the C range.
Yeah, I gave it a B. I think
that was like more a B minus.
You said B minus when we talked. But look, the thing with sequels like this, and I felt really the same way about the Bill and Ted's third one as well that just recently came out, is that these movies are never going to match up to their originator. They can't.
It's such a high bar.
This movie is in both of our top 50s of all time.
Absolutely.
This is a classic for so many people. It literally would be impossible.
Yeah,
to match it.
It's one of those things.
This is lightning in a bottle.
It's so good you can't do it again.
So what they did with the second one, I think, is
build on it,
and it's almost exactly what Bill and Ted's did when they introduced the two daughters. Is that you have your basis for the nostalgia stuff. You have all the callbacks, great, love it. But then you introduce a few new characters that add to the comedy, add to the silliness, and are identifiable characters themselves. Like you're not trying to copy somebody from the first movie.
No.
Like the Akeem's son, they could have made him exactly like Akeem, and that wouldn't have been as good.
Interesting, no.
Whereas you have obviously the more fish out of water type stuff, when this time
it's the reverse.
Now,
is
personally, I would have liked some more time in New York.
It should have been called Coming to Zamunda.
It should have been called Coming to Zamunda. And that actually would have been fine because you can't even say the name of the movie without confusing people because they're both called Coming to America.
And they should have definitely still kept
one
it
a number. Yeah.
And I think if you mark it up, people
I think that would have been fine. Everybody would have still known the movie.
It was one of my gripes, and I did talk to you a bit about it. I was like, well, look, I get it, Coming to America.
And I agree with that.
It's one of those things where it's a bit iffy. It's not as bad as the Karate Kid remake, which should have been, where there's no karate in the movie.
Kung Fu.
That Kung Fu Kid irritated me.
But you know, I thought the Bill and Ted's movie did that brilliantly as well. It gave us all the old classics. Of course, George Carlin, God bless him, was dead.
I really liked the Bill and Ted movie.
But I liked the Bill and Ted's Face the Music. I thought it was very good.
I thought it was very good.
And I think they did the same thing here. I think we've built on what we had.
Mm-hmm.
They got literally almost everyone to return.
That was pretty cool.
Which proves how beloved this movie is.
And how loyal
people get it.
People are to Eddie Murphy and respect him and are willing to work with him, and that's a good thing.
Well, James Earl Jones, there's another one. He's only done pretty much voice work for the last decade.
And to be fair, he was very immobile in it, but he still came back to do it, which was great.
Man's 90 years old.
That's
great. God bless him.
That's great he did that.
So I love that. And listen, talk about somebody who didn't need the money.
Oh, didn't need any.
Was way famous when this movie came out.
He could have been like, I've done so many things. I don't need to do Coming to America. But of course, he obviously.
But of course, he's going to do it.
It's one of his most iconic roles.
Other than Darth Vader, it really is.
Like I always say, it's kind of both dramatic and hilarious. But like when they're building up to them coming back, it's like, the king, dun, dun, dun.
Yeah,
it's so awesome.
And I think he had some of the funniest lines in the new movie.
Well, he was angry. I didn't realize how much. I mean, I guess he
hates Semmi.
He did hate Semmi, but they said, I guess 30 years later, man, he just wants to kill him.
It's just been built up.
He
literally wanted him murdered. And let's talk about Arsenio Hall having a new character.
The shaman.
The shaman, Baba. Who's in like 3 or 4 scenes.
I'll be honest, the makeup was so good, I didn't know which one of it was.
I was pretty sure, because Arsenio has a longer face, but
the makeup
is so
Whoever
good.
Does the makeup for these movies,
I know.
That was it. Oh, and
so good.
I believe someone said, or I read somewhere that I guess the costume people that did Black Panther worked on this movie.
Oh, is that right?
I believe so.
That wouldn't surprise me.
I think so. Or they were trying to mimic it.
That would not surprise me.
Because the costumes were great.
Wesley Snipes was in this as well.
As the villain.
One of your favorites.
Which a cool callback because it was he was the brother.
He's the older brother of the woman
that got left behind.
That was supposed to marry.
And they were resentful of that. And there's a war with the people of Nextdoria.
Nextdoria.
Which I thought was funny. That was a classic.
I think it's funny.
Coming to America gag. Like, okay, that's pretty good.
Nextdoria.
If I remember correctly, you didn't like Wesley Snipes that much?
Well, I
thought he was funny.
No, he was fine. He was okay. He was fine.
I thought he was fine.
He didn't necessarily need to even be in the movie.
No.
I just feel like they wanted to,
they could have just said there's
my buddy Wesley Snipes, let's put him in the movie. Well, that was all. But it did give, not to be too spoiler about it, but it did give
spoilers
a little bit. It did give Akeem's daughters a really good scene.
Yes.
That's all I'll say. I don't think that's that spoiler.
No, and I will say one thing, though. I really, really did appreciate how they fed into the elaborate dance scene where apparently their whole nation's about big dance numbers whenever they show up. Whenever the soldiers come
That was funny.
That was great.
Yeah.
They ran with that. I appreciated that. So that was fun.
And they had the guy back, the guy that sings... I
forgot to mention that guy. That's another great quote. She's your queen.
Yeah.
That guy came back. He's great. And the best thing about his joke in the original movie is that he does that great, singing thing, and then just cuts back to his stone face. I hate being here. I love that guy.
Yeah. So he was good when he was back.
That guy's great.
What did you think about the new characters? Other than Wesley Snipes, we had Jermaine Fowler, Leslie Jones, Tracy Morgan, the three that came to Zamunda.
I thought Leslie Jones and Tracy Morgan were funny. I think my biggest issue with the movie was that it took a little while for me to kind of gauge his son, because I think he sort of played him differently early on. It's like it wasn't until he kind of came into his own that I was sure how to see how he was.
Okay.
He's introduced a certain way.
Right.
Turns out he's actually very aloof, and I didn't really like him much at first.
Okay.
But
you came around.
I did come around, thankfully. I think, ironically, my biggest problem with the movie, I had 2 issues. One's kind of bigger, one's a bit smaller, is basically the romance I thought was not the best done, because he ends up. All right.
Now we're really getting spoilers.
I'm sorry.
I was being coy here.
It's an hour. If they're still listening, they
all right. I guess that's true.
If you don't want to, turn it off. So you come back later, watch the sequel.
Free on Amazon Prime. By the way.
It's fine. If you have Amazon Prime right now, go. He gets with the Royal Barber.
Yes.
I didn't realize that was even going to be a thing until, I think the second or third scene she was in. So, okay, that's going to be a love interest. And then they start to have chemistry. And then
a little bit of a slow build.
And then it just became very predictable what was going to happen. So I was like, okay, I didn't know how that was handled with his character. I felt like they could have been, I guess, a little more tonally even. With his portrayal and that romance. Not that it was bad. I liked the actress and everything, but I don't know. It felt like almost like, oh yeah, we got to have this in here, and then eventually they ran with it. So it seemed almost underdeveloped. And the minor thing I kind of had was, honestly, I did agree with everything you said about Akeem.
Okay.
Being kind of more like the father and the straight man and more serious and kind of in the back, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But the problem I have with that is this movie feels like it has a lot less Arsenio. And I miss that.
I guess that's true because he's really dealing with his son.
And Arsenio has a couple bits on the side, and then some with the shaman. But he was such a big part of the
maybe that's why they added him in as the shaman.
I guess. And he had a couple funny bits, but I didn't think that was as funny as any of his best bits in the original. So the lack of Arsenio was comedically was my biggest problem with it.
Arsenio's characters are very funny.
And he's like, in the equation, he's of the big actors, he's the other guy. So
yeah, this is true.
So I'm like, but overall, I thought it was pretty good. It was one thing that really, really impressed me about it was kind of like you said. I feel like it would have been so easy for a movie like this to just seep in nostalgia like they do with Dumber and Dumber sequel.
I thought the Dumb and Dumber sequel was terrible for that reason.
The gags again and everything.
Yeah.
But this one tried to build on it, have mostly an original story, but with little nuggets and things, and I thought it was a good sequel.
Yeah,
I think it did.
I think for a sequel 32 years after the fact, that you can't ask for much more than that.
No. You really couldn't.
I mean, there's not too many movies that do have sequels 30 years apart. Blade Runner is about the only one I can think of.
Yeah. That was actually pretty good.
In terms of direct sequels, and there's only 2 movies in the series.
Like, making a good sequel to a comedy, especially after the delay, or any kind of sequel, is hard.
Yeah.
Let alone trying to make it as good or better than the original. That's so rare.
It's very rare. The only thing that even comes close in my mind after such a long time is maybe Rocky. When they did Rocky Balboa, that was about 20 years after Rocky V.
And the Creed movies
and Rocky V was terrible. Rocky Balboa was great, and then the Creed movies afterwards were also...
I think they're pretty fantastic.
I mean, that first Creed movie was outstanding.
Yeah, that's I've even said I think it's up there with the
but I think comedy is a little harder.
It is.
In that vein.
Because it's very much of the time.
Because, of course, 20 years after the fact, you can see a drama and everything. That's fine.
Yeah.
See where people are. But to have the same...
sort of comedic tone
and comedic timing too,
with chemistry between people.
It's pretty rare.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. Could you guess what my favorite laugh? What coming to laugh the hardest in the sequel was?
Well, you love McDowell's,
correct?
So is it when he was talking about the McFlurby?
Yeah,
we talked about that all weekend. He talks
about how, there are toppings. We just put them on the bottom. And I was like, well, that's...
that was great. And what's
the hardest laugh I had.
What's so perfect about that scene is Akeem actually comes to him for advice. So it's actually
kind of
this dramatic scene, but then...
He still has a little...
he's talking about the McFlurbies the scene
as like a way to
as an example
to think ahead and to think outside the box and to
I think
believe
that
in
was
yourself.
Very, very smartly written.
With our toppings,
right?
We put them on the bottom.
We just put them on the bottom. I think it was a very, very well done scene.
I love Mr. McDowell.
I'm glad he's still alive.
Not to cut back to the original again, but great character.
Great character.
I love that guy, and once again you kind of see him as being like kind of this overbearing force, you think, and he's means well, but whatever. But he really does care about what's best for his daughters.
Yeah,
and I love that when he stands up to the king and he's like, well, I don't care who you are, I'll not break my foot off.
When he talks, when he starts offering him the money, and he's like, you can't buy me off.
1 million, 2 million.
That's actually a great. That's a great line.
That's a great dramatic.
And he goes, "You can't buy me off, Jack." That was a great scene.
He's like, and then the mom's like, apologize to him. I will not. Yes, you will.
Yeah. Now see the mom center of the moral center of the movie.
My Big Fat Greek Wedding. She can turn the head anywhere.
You're right.
Wants. Another great movie.
Now that actress passed away in the mid '90s. The one that played the Queen.
Oh, that's the other person that wasn't in it.
Yeah. The three that aren't in it, other than the sister, I guess, Eric Lasalle.
Yeah.
Who I think should have been back, but he's busy directing and producing this show.
He was in Queens, so not for.
And then he was in Queens. And then Samuel L. Jackson didn't come back.
Yeah, that really surprised me. They didn't cut to him.
There were scheduling conflicts, I guess.
He would have come back. That's like his first.
He had talked with Eddie, and they said if they would have been able to work it out, he would have been robbing the new McDowell's in Zamunda.
Oh,
but
that would have been great.
That would have been great. But yeah, it's scheduling conflicts.
Maybe they'll do a commercial or a featurette or something.
Maybe on the DVD or something.
I hope so.
I'd buy it.
That director's cut, just that one scene.
Listen,
you'd go for it.
Even though things are streaming for free, I do still like to have a DVD.
You'd buy this,
especially if there's like extras on it or something.
Oh.
Can you imagine how many extra like improv gags and jokes they had?
And also, one of the things that it actually worked out too, I guess. It's one of those things that basically, Dan, for Christmas, I think it was, you got me this big 14-disc
Murphy box
set, which we've been watching a couple of. And, I think it wasn't until then that I realized how much of an Eddie Murphy fan I am.
You're a big fan.
And the Coming to America one actually has like all these special features about the costumes and the dancing.
Yeah, we should watch it with the commentary. We've seen the movie so many times. We should watch commentary track this time.
I am interested in movie making so much. I need to watch these commentaries and featurettes more.
You should, because some of them are really, really cool.
Yeah, I think a commentary for Coming to America would be great.
Yeah. But yeah, I think we're going to trudge through a bunch of those because there's so many I have not seen.
Yes.
I've seen some of the classics, but not all of them.
Though I think that Coming to America certainly is the best or one of the best. I mean, for sure. I'm just trying to think of another Eddie Murphy that might be.
There's nothing for me that comes close.
For straight more comedy.
I mean, Shrek 2.
But I don't really count
that's not an Eddie Murphy
That's
movie.
That's a Mike Myers project with
yeah.
that's ensemble. And I like some of his dramatic ones. Like, I guess Dreamgirls is a good movie.
Oh, my God. He's great in Dreamgirls.
And I like him in Golden Child's kind of more supernatural, dramatic.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
What about Life? People seem to like that movie. You ever see that?
No.
Him and Martin Lawrence. I've never seen it, but people do seem to like it.
I'm missing a couple of the classics, but no. Eddie Murphy's got some. Oh, you know what though? Actually, it's definitely not as good as this, but the companion to this, Trading Places, is a really good movie.
Yeah, I gotta see it.
Although I once again think that's more of an ensemble.
They brought that back in the new movie too.
Yes, they did.
That was a nice Easter egg.
Man, the Easter egg that
Duke and Duke.
The son was trying to interview with the grandson or grandson
of
the Duke guys from Trading Places who had their little cameo in Coming to America.
Same universe.
I think that's more of an Aykroyd vehicle, but Eddie Murphy is a big
Makes
part
sense.
of it. It's the two of them.
Yeah.
It's a good movie. This might be the best comedy.
I could see it, yeah.
I really don't have a doubt about
that. For me, it is absolutely. I know people love Nutty Professor, but...
Nutty
Professor's fine.
I watched it as a kid and didn't love it.
I watched it when it first came out, so I would have been in college. Yeah, I think it was the summer between high school and college. That's fine.
I'd have to watch it again. I think my favorite thing is where he, it's kind of a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde sort of.
Right.
Yeah. And I think, was it Dave Chappelle he heckles back or something?
It might be.
He was doing the stand-up.
It would have been before I knew who Dave Chappelle was, so I don't know.
I think he's doing the stand-up. That's the thing, and he's trying to lose weight, and he does the acupuncture and everything, and nothing works. Yeah, I'd have to watch it.
I mean, I literally saw the movie one time 25 years ago. I have no idea.
I know that's a classic.
I'm sure it's fine.
You know what, though? I think people love... I think for his family stuff, and I liked it too. I think Dr. Dolittle...
People did love Dr. But again, these are movies that are remakes. Yeah. Nutty Professor and Dr. Dolittle are remakes.
This is original.
This is an original movie.
Show, yeah.
But it's original.
Yeah.
And yeah, we've talked about some of the tropes maybe we've seen before, but I mean, this is completely original.
Absolutely.
So...
Well, I think that it definitely was a good addition to the Jolo's Movies podcast.
Yeah.
And you know what?
I agree. You do love that movie.
I'm sad that we lost the first pod, but you know what? I think we went in deeper.
Well, I think it's nice because we have now the sequel to sort of play off of too. Yeah.
So yeah, that's good.
So it's just as well.
And I've decided that I want to do more of these podcasts too, because I'm making it official. Hopefully it'll be soon.
Oh my God.
We're going to do our Time Machine podcast.
Oh,
next.
okay, yep.
So you should be on the next one.
Time Machine. Well, as we've talked about, I love the first one.
Yep.
Never seen the second one.
Which I've probably seen more and sort of grew up with.
Ugh, get out of here with that.
Hey, you don't know.
The first one, I do. The first one is...
Great movie.
One of my favorites of all time, and it's my favorite sci-fi movie. You're a sci-fi guy.
And it's a movie that I really appreciate and really like, but it's one of your favorites, not mine. So it's more of a guess.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Which, and that's the way it was with Batman when I had Troll on. Alex, it was like, Batman Returns I always liked a little more. And if I have to pick and choose videos to make, I'll do Returns at some point before Batman.
Sure.
Though I'll probably do 8 and 9 Batman at some point. This is just a way to kind of talk about stuff without, having to do extra editing and stuff.
Well, and it's really Joe. What would it be called? So Joe loves movies, obviously.
It's general.
But I love Time Machine more.
Yes.
So it's really Joe has friends who love movies.
That's true.
That case,
not a good title. But
no.
but the whole idea is.
But you do like the Time Machine.
I love movies. No,
yeah.
I would say I really really like Time Machine. It's possible that I could love it.
That's a great one for me. I can't wait to talk about it.
So yeah, that'll be the next one. But if you're still listening, wow, appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks for that.
But I had a good time talking with you about this.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. And in the meantime, please check out Dan's channel over at Dan Reviews It. All kinds of stuff,
yes,
TV,
please.
movies, and I'm over there sometimes too.
Yeah, you do a lot on my channel, which I always appreciate.
And I'm trying to get you over here to pay it back.
I know, and I am doing it. Don't worry about that.
Absolutely. But in that case,
thanks, guys.
Say goodbye, Dan.
See ya.
I'm going to say stay magical.